Time and space have lost all meaning, and yet still we look to the future. A future that may never happen if we fail in our mission. We watch to remind us of what we are fighting for. This is the Build Right.
Greetings, Ranger fans. Database Ranger reporting in. This is Rider Log Designation KRB, Kamen Rider Build. The series starts building out its world with the mission to Mars that uncovered the Pandora box, then turn unleash the massive skywall that looks to have exposed Japan to the negative emotions of the Nilak-Sanzu River, splitting the nation into the territories of Seto, Hokuto, and Toto.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Shaking things up is our hero, Sento Kiryu, an amnesiac physicist with a cell phone motorbike, joined by Ryuga Banjo, Misore Tsurugi, Soichi Tsurugi, and Gentoku Himuro, his shady government employer. They use the power of magic math to uncover how former fighter Ryuga is framed for murder, with the help of Misore and her giant microwave oven of science, all while Gentoku and his robotic soldiers work to unlock the secrets of the Pandora box. Chilling at the Nisita Cafe, they use Misore's mysterious bracelet to unlock the power of the full bottles and hop into action to summon the mix-and-match model kit powers of Kamen Rider Build, regularly Mega Manning new powers like Gorillamon and Hedgehog Tank through combating the forces of the mysterious Night Rogue and his mutated human experiments, the Smash. Together, they master metaphysical manifestations of mathematical formulas and entropy to stave off civil war, save Japan, and discover their own mysterious origins through a best match of brains, bronze, John Ambrose Fleming's right-hand rule, and their hope for a better tomorrow. And that's the end of the series in a nutshell. So, what did I think of it? Well, this series is complex, to say the least. The themes are multifaceted, the characters are deeply layered, and the plot never lets up on delivering twist after twist after compelling twist. Like, while I did sort of sum up the series in a nutshell, I barely really even cracked the surface. Even the very first scene of the series, flashing back to the manned mission to Mars and the public reveal of the Pandora box, is full of characters that will later be revisited and go on to play major roles throughout the series. And the creation of the Skywall itself gets revisited again and again as we eventually learn who triggered it, why they did it, and what their true goals were, with each of those questions actually having multiple answers. The title of the series is actually very apt in this regard, since it gives the show a strong foundation to continually build upon. The entire first episode is loaded with elements that provide basic blueprints for what will be explored throughout its 49-episode run. The mystery of the Pandora box, the creation of the Skywall, the tensions between the three territories, the nature of Misore's ability to purify full bottles, the identity of Night Rogue, the origins of the Smash, the origins of the eponymous Kamen Rider, and the origins of Sento himself are all set up from the beginning, all connected by the inciting incident of Ryuga escaping from a secret lab where he was experimented on after being framed for murder and then meeting up with Sento, culminating in a high-speed motorcycle chase along the Skywall that leaves them both as fugitives from the Toto government. And that's just the first episode. The entire show is packed with serialized storytelling to peel back the layers of its mysteries and explore their consequences all the way through to the final arc. And somehow it manages to accomplish this while rarely ever seeming to just be spinning its wheels or pulling plot points out of nowhere. And that's not to say that this comes at the expense of the characters. While the humor might not always land, the warmth of the core cast continually shines through, as their bonds are strengthened through their challenges, and you come to believe that they really do eventually see one another as family. Although, technically speaking, even that can sometimes end up being a misdirect, and the show definitely dives deep into the emotional impact that such betrayals of trust can have. In fact, one of the reasons that the twisting plot threads work so well is because they are so well anchored by the emotional impacts that they have on the characters. Because Sento and Ryuga are both so deeply invested in their search for answers, each new clue has an added emotional weight, and each new reveal comes with a heavy cost, both for them and for the characters that they're tasked with saving. The fact the monsters they face are all just humans who are also victims of circumstance further adds to this. And as if that wasn't enough, the context of the ever-evolving story adds layers to moments that become even more heartbreaking in hindsight. And if you never thought that you could cry over a sugary egg omelet, you are wrong. Yet somehow, despite the deep tragedies that befall many of the characters, there is an underlying sense of hope that persists throughout the show, as they are continually determined to see that the sacrifices they make are not in vain. And a big part of that is rooted in the main character of Sento. While he often comes across as insensitive or egotistical, Sento's actions belie a deep and heartfelt desire to help others, often putting his own needs aside when he sees someone else in need of aid, most notably seen in his relationship with Ryuga, as the two form a deep and powerful bond that becomes the beating heart of the series, as two deeply flawed people finding strength through one another. Another interesting note is that, despite the constant battles that he fights as a Kamen Rider, he is ostensibly a pacifist. This works well for him during his early battles, where defeating the Smash simply restores them to their human forms, but as the series wears on, he is faced with increasingly difficult decisions that very nearly shatter him emotionally, making for some of the most deeply compelling character arcs I've ever seen. Now, not to give anything away, but the tremendous character struggles faced by the heroes also happen to be paired with what is quite possibly one of the most masterfully manipulative villains I've ever seen. Because, well, if you have a genius for your hero, you need a villain who can appropriately match them, and hoo boy, does this show have that. But that's not to say the show is perfect. The unrelenting pace of the series can become exhausting at times, especially when reveals on some characters extend almost to the very end of the show, where such twists can border on feeling extraneous. The perpetually escalating nature of the threat that they face does hit its peak just a little too early, meaning that the show kind of has to temporarily pump its brakes for a bit, hurting the momentum during the penultimate story arc, where the villain basically decides to change their plan and has to restart just because, well, they didn't feel like their existing plan was epic enough. And believe me, the show does get some pretty epic sequences. Unfortunately, the minor reset late in the game ends up pulling attention away from some of the secondary characters, stripping away some of their more complex motivations and briefly reducing them to simple running gags that sadly fail to land more often than not. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, these are comparatively minor quibbles. The world of these characters is so rich and complex that it's almost inevitable that some things are going to fall by the wayside, as the story expands outwards past the boundaries of the main series, with supplemental films and miniseries providing key insights and foreshadowing into the characters and plot. Not to mention the impressive visuals, creative designs, versatile gimmicks, and excellent action sequences. At its core, Build demonstrates that a hero is not made through his actions alone, but constructed through the relationships that he has with the people around him, and through working together to create that better world. Overall, if I had to sum up Kamen Rider Build in one word, it would be smart. It displays tremendous confidence in its storytelling, leans into classic themes of war and humanity from classic Kamen Rider series, and constantly explores the layers of the world and its characters through the tragic implications of their choices and circumstances. Oh, and there are non-stop math and science references slipped into every nook and cranny of the show, with even the episode numbers being derived from mathematical theorems and formulas. Honestly, I can't wait to show this series to Dr. K after we get back from our mission. I'm still working through the end of Dino Supercharge, which I think technically aired before this, but the temporal distortions of this place meant that it came up in my queue early. I only meant to check out the first episode, but this show grabbed hold of me and refused to let go, so I ended up devouring the whole thing like the energy of the moon. That being said, we should be approaching the landlord's headquarters at any moment now, so until my next entry, this is Database Ranger signing off. Farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect us all.